Hello and welcome to Eye on South Asia. I'm Bhavna Vanan.
And I'm Sanjiv Pandya.
Every week we'll bring to you the latest news, events, and happenings in the South Asian community. Sanjiv, a happy new year to you. It's the first episode of 2013.
That's right. Happy New Year to you and Happy New Year to our viewers also.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So, what New Year's resolutions do you have for this year?
New Year's resolution this year is to do more and more shows like this, Eye on South Asia. Well, I think in this week's episode, we do have some good stories.
We do. We have some great stories. So speaking of resolutions, the United Nations has some resolutions of their own.
That's right.
They're going to be increasing the membership dues for several countries, and this includes the BRIC, or the developing countries. That would be Brazil, India, China, and Russia. And there's a 5% increase to the world's budget for 2013.
And it's going to be $5.4 billion.
Yeah.
I didn't know they have such a big budget. So now adding, 5% into it, in total $5.4 billion. Now this United Nations General Assembly, approves, after approving 5% increase to these countries pay their share more because of their gross national income. And then these increases are based upon their gross national income. So that means India, China, Brazil, and Russia, they have more gross national income this year than they had before.
Right.
And especially China, I think China is going to be at number 6, leaving Canada and Italy behind in the list.
There are several European countries that are going to be lowering their contribution, which would be countries like Britain, Germany, France, and Japan. They're cutting their revised UN budget, with the US remaining at the same. They're contributing at about 22%.
Correct.
So India is going to be going up at about a 24% increase, which is going to be paying for a lot of the political missions that are happening regarding the UN's involvement in Syria, Yemen, Libya, Sudan, South Sudan. And India is in negotiations with the UN and voting with the UN in another area. That is the area of a draft resolution for the Arms Trade Treaty. This is in relation with the NRA, and they're actually discussing a regulation of the $70 billion global trade in conventional weapons along with 133 member states.
This has been a very controversial draft. US and India, they voted in favor of it, along with, I believe, another 133 nations. But this has been very controversial because NRA, National Rifle Association in the USA, they are strongly opposing this draft for many years. And now they have said that if this draft fails in the UN, it will be a big victory for American gun owners, because what NRA is saying is that to protect a bad guy with a gun is to have a good guy with a gun.
Right.
So they want to sell more and more guns. They want to make guns more accessible to Americans and have more Americans own the guns. And United Nations, any other member countries are trying to revise that draft, but apparently, it seems that it's still getting roadblocked.
And the vice president of the NRA, Wayne LaPierre, is saying, in news conferences with the UN, that they want to develop more programs with schools to arm their security guards and train them further and have more weaponry, which India now is voting in opposition to.
True.
So India is taking a stance on that issue. India has also been in the news where they are making deals with Russia in regards to their defense deals and weaponry. On December 24th, India signed defense deals worth $3 billion, and they're going to be procuring 42 new combat aircrafts and several helicopter.
On December 24th, you said it was a 13th annual India-Russia summit in New Delhi, where Russian President Vladimir Putin made a visit to India. I think he stopped in there for about 18 hours. Him and Prime Minister Manmohan Singh met, and that's when, during their meeting, India signed a defense deal worth $3.3 billion to acquire 42 new Su-30 MKI combat aircraft and 71 Mi-17 V5 medium lift helicopters.
Yes.
So
that's a lot of productivity in 18 hours, I would say.
I'm sure it was all done. It just Mr. Putin had to convince Prime Minister Singh to go ahead with it and get it signed. So I think Putin just stopped in there to get his signature.
To get the signature, get it over with. So yeah, I think that should be a good relationship going forward with India and Russia.
True.
Now, speaking of the relationship with South Asia, we have a new relationship that's coming forth with Senator John F. Kerry.
I would say this is the major highlight of this week's Eye on South Asia. This story, ever since President Barack Obama announced his nomination of U.S. Senator John Kerry to succeed Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State, not only U.S. Politicians, whether it's Republicans or Democrats, but leading South Asia experts also welcome Obama's choice as a really good choice. Hillary Clinton has done a splendid job so far, but as we know that she will be retiring, she will be leaving end of January, I think. So John Kerry's nomination, I think it further seals United States' efforts in strengthening their ties with South Asia, along with other nations in the world also. John Kerry, a Massachusetts Democrat, who is an unsuccessful presidential nominee also in 2004, he's very experienced, very knowledgeable, and he knows how to deal with these international countries. He's got tremendous patience. Kerry made a recent statement about how he feels about U.S.'s relations with India when he convened confirmation hearings for President Obama's nominee Nancy Powell to be U.S. ambassador to India back in February. And I think in his opening remarks he said that, we understand, Washington understands India's important role into the world and in the future, and we want to work with India more and more often. So I think Washington will be looking for India's not only cooperation, but a regional leadership in South Asia.
Right. He was actually one of the key movers behind the passage of the civil nuclear deal with India, as well as he's been supporting India's own issues with counterterrorism and economic development.
Right.
So when he starts, supporting this relationship with Pakistan, it's less on a military front, but it's more to actually further their civilian developments, giving more aid to civilian development and their country's infrastructure rather than the military side of things.
That's exactly what the point is, and that's why he will push for balanced policies for India and Pakistan. And I think he also hopes that India-Pakistan breaks with unstable and somewhat stereotyped politics and come up with better political relations between the two countries.
Now we come back to New York City. There's been an incident that has had New Yorkers terrified of riding the subway these days. This is regarding a 46-year-old Indian immigrant, Sunando Sen, who was pushed from a subway train track in Queens by a 31-year-old woman named Erica Menendez in front of an oncoming train, and he was killed.
That's right.
And this has been, initially it was seen as just a random act of violence, but now Erica Menendez is being charged with a hate crime and murder because she was actually targeting this man for being a Muslim. She was commented to have said she has been targeting Hindus and Muslims ever since 9/11, or so she says.
This woman, Erica Menendez, she has a history of mental instability problems, and the fact is that after 11 years since 9/11 attack happened, I think there are people in this country, they still carry hatred within themselves, and especially when they say Muslims or even Indians, they don't know that Indians were not part of the September 11, 2001 attack. And even though whatever happened, it happened 11 years ago, and she even said that during all these years, she was pushing Indians and Muslims around when she was walking on the street. When she would see somebody who looked like a Muslim, she would push that person, and it's exactly what happened in this case also. She thought he was a Muslim, while this guy, a Bengali guy living in the Queens, I believe, and having his own printing business somewhere in the uptown New York. and he was just standing by the train, and that's when she thought he was a Muslim, and she pushed him. And I think more horrifying thing was to see her on TV smiling and giggling all about.
Right, she showed absolutely no remorse and was
Absolutely
laughing
not.
at the
Yeah.
incident. This, as you mentioned, there is society and the courts talking about these people's mental instability and their psychiatric conditioning. The judge himself had ordered a psychiatric evaluation of this woman.
True.
However, these people know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're targeting Hindus and Muslims, or just South Asians in general, just the general public, which had nothing to do with 9/11. It seems like just an excuse to target people, using 9/11 as an excuse.
And that's why I like this statement that put out by New York chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations, known as a CAIR, New York. They said that we urge our nation's leaders to speak out forcefully against the rising level of anti-Muslim hate in American society that is being fueled and exploited by a vocal minority of Islamophobes. I mean, that says truly, I think leaders should come out and I think speak more often, speak more aggressively, speak more forcefully to let people know that this kind of hatred is absolutely unacceptable, and no one should keep this kind of hatred in their mind.
Right. The HASC has also expressed the need for the Department of Justice to have a separate Hindu category to track anti-Hindu crimes when the FBI is doing their investigations, because we do need statistics on these things to show how often these things are happening.
Absolutely. And in case if any one of you missed this story, this person was named Sunando Sen, 46-year-old man, had no family living in here or in Bengal, but he was sharing an apartment with some of his friends who got together, and also consulate office in India helped them to organize a funeral and everything else.
Right. We express our strong condolences for Mr. Sen, and we hope that justice can be done in this case. With that, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back on Eye on South Asia.